So the ProgPow update, what we have is we released on Monday a blog post that kind of gave an overview of why we're doing the ProgPow audit. It gave some links to some surveys and interviews we gave on basically from some ProgPow stakeholders. It showed the coin vote and the hash vote, and then explained the audit and how we're fundraising for it. So we are fundraising through a Gitcoin bounty for some community support, but we're also talking to some major organizations. How that's going right now, we've had some commitments from a few organizations, mostly miners, and I'm also talking to some other people about it and seeing which ones want to give. I don't really want to give names right now, just in case they want to stay anonymous, um, because we are taking anonymous donations as well from people. I'm shooting for getting this done in the next week or so, hopefully, as soon as possible. But who knows about timelines right now? It's kind of up in the air.
Cool. And there was another bullet point around, do we want to shut down progpowcarbonvote.com? And if so, when? Does anyone have
just a
Yep.
Just a quick one before we go there. Just a quick update. The fundraising link that we gave through for White Block in the last meeting is incorrect. That has been updated in the agenda or in the action items, or at least the comments in the agenda. So that's the correct fundraising address. Also, just with regards to the ProgPower being tentatively included in the Istanbul fork, just from the meeting, we have some final clarification where we landed with that from the core developers meeting.
I was on the core devs call, so I'm happy to comment. I think the biggest takeaway is that people had a very different perception of whether or not it was included. So my perception on the last core devs call was that it seemed like it was going in conditional on like not having a big issue being discovered in the audit. And I think once that got sort of announced in a way, a lot of people in the community started pushing back, saying that they were under the impression that like we were still discussing ProgPow. And so we're kind of in this bind where clearly the miners have signaled yes, like overwhelmingly. There's been like 100% vote for ProgPow and something like 70% of miner turnout, I think. But then the rest of the community who aren't miners, so a lot of like application developers and whatnot, seem to be opposed to ProgPow for a bunch of various reasons. And there doesn't seem to be a clear way to reconcile these. So some people have suggested doing some like community calls to talk about it. There's been a whole bunch of threads on like Twitter and ETH Magicians and Gitter about it. So I don't think there's like a clear decision at this point.
I mean, maybe this isn't the time or the place to discuss this, but I mean, just sort of something that's, I guess, bothering me a bit is in a decentralized process, what does a decision look like anyway? I mean, one of the things I'm sort of confused by from the crowd here is I'm not ever really clear when I'm looking at the naysayers about what they would rather see happen. I mean, right now there's information out there, there's signals out there, there's data out there. The only thing that looks like it could happen right now is that implementers could go ahead and implement it. And once it's implemented, people could opt out of using whatever it's implemented in. I'm a bit confused about the noise.
Yeah, I am too, but one thing that I did see as a valid point was that the naysayers said that they didn't have a clear picture of why we needed it, and that's also something that I have kind of seen. I guess it just depends on where you land on ASIC centralization. So I think that, yeah, so I guess I'm not exactly sure where everyone's landing on that, but hopefully after the audit, we can continue to discuss it as kind of what people are saying. Also, real quick about Whiteblock, they're shutting down their ProgPow audit page because they're not going to be doing the benchmarking portion anymore. They do have a Gitcoin bounty, but that's not for ProgPow auditing. That's for just testing in general.
Okay, so the bounties page will be shut down as well?
The bounties page will be shut down. The Gitcoin page will not be shut down because it's not related to ProgPow.
Cool. Thanks for the update.
So is there any other step that like we want the cat herders to take on ProgPow right now? If not, I suggest we sort of move on because it tends to consume every minute in every meeting that it gets mentioned.
Yeah, it does. Let's just look for community sentiment is all I'd have to say on that. And I don't know what that means exactly, but I think hopefully things will start to roll toward a consensus over time as stuff like the audit comes out.
Just to be clear, right now for ProgPow, we have only one bounty going on that is mentioned in your post, Hudson?
Yes, exactly. One bounty, and that's the one in the post.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Anyone else has anything to add on this, or should we move on to the next item?
No, let's decide when we're shutting down the carbon ProgPow vote.
Okay. Yeah, do we want to shut it down? If so, when?
Sorry, this one's mine. Let me just give a little bit of a tiny bit of background here. Just to recap how this happened in the first place, there was an anonymous community member who requested that this happen and offered a bounty for it. So it wasn't really a cat herders initiative, strictly speaking, but I sort of have it on the agenda here because it kind of falls under the broader heading of, you know, kind of gauging the sentiment of the community for ProgPow. Anyway, so a few things have happened, right? As you guys mentioned earlier, it's been up for, I think, close to 2 months now. You know, many people have had the opportunity to vote on it. We have, I haven't looked at it in the past few days, but last I saw it was something like 3 million Ether. So, I mean, you know, it's still a small amount percentage-wise, but it's in absolute terms, I think that that's a decent amount of signaling that's happened. I don't think that it has, the overall results have moved much in the past month or so. Couple of reasons we might want to shut it down. One is it costs money to keep it up. It is a full archival node, which costs a few $100s a month to run. Another reason is that in order to vote in a carbon vote, I think people who have their Ether in certain places, like on exchanges, actually need to move it off the exchange to vote. And so it would kind of be nice, and they have to keep it there as well, because if they were to move it back, then their vote would be removed. That's the way carbon vote works. So anyway, guess what I'm saying is, it's been long enough. We should let people move their Ether back to wherever they want it to be, shut the thing down. The donor who asked it to be set up in the first place also wants it to be taken down. However, we do need to make an announcement about this and give people something like 2, 3, 4 weeks to get their final votes in before we do that. So that's the backstory.
It seems reasonable to shut it down based on the cost, but also give this heads up warning. We just want to be sure that like all of the community hears the warning. So I think we should just post that on every platform. Does anyone disagree with this?
I don't disagree. As far as timing, I would say 2 weeks is enough personally.
Okay. So yeah, so maybe we want to have that as an action item 2 weeks from now. Yeah, shutting it down 2 weeks from now. And then
9th of April?
Sure, if that's 2 weeks from now. But then also to like literally after this call, start communicating this on the various platforms, like on Twitter, Reddit, ETH Magicians, GitHub, and etc. So that it's just clear that this is being shut down, and that if people, maybe I don't know if we want to like agree on a specific block for a snapshot or something like that, for the final vote or a time when it'll be last counted. But try and communicate that.
That sounds like a good idea to me.
Sounds fair.
Okay. Okay. So maybe let's just coordinate on Gitter afterwards, but let's agree on like a time or block, then on where and how to post it. And then we can use the April 9th as like a rough date for the shutdown.
Okay, that sounds good to me.
Cool. Next item is hard fork coordination update. Does anyone have an update on this?
Hudson, while you were away, we were just asking how that was going with regards to hard fork coordinators.
Yeah, I haven't made much movement on that because of the ProgPow stuff, so I don't really have an update except to say that was something where I know Joe had volunteered and Dean had volunteered. And then I think a few other people had said they can step up if need be. And so that's just kind of hanging out there for now.
Yep.
I think Tim has made some progress. Tim, first you would like to go ahead with that, and then I would add on to whatever we have done. I mean, like I have done on my part.
So Pooja, do you mean like the EIP1 thing I sent you? And
yes.
Okay, so maybe I can give an update there, but Boris has been working with Alexei to submit a PR to the meta EAPS templates. He's talked about this before, so that the meta EAP for a hard fork would link the EAPs that are suggested and accepted for this hard fork. Maybe I can find a PR and post it in our cat herders Gitter afterwards. I don't have it handy. So that's one thing that's been going on, just for better signaling if people suggesting EAPs to allow them to just open a PR against the meta hard fork EAP for a specific hard fork and say, I'd like this to be included there. One tiny thing that I did was just go over the EAP1 definitions where there were like conflicting definitions of what it meant for an EAP to be accepted. So I have a small PR open there to just try and harmonize those definitions so that they're consistent, at least across like that single document. And Boris wanted to start working on a way to just better describe the process around creating and submitting an EAP. So right now, the EAP1 document is like a pretty good resource on the technical side, but it's quite vague in terms of how do you get like community buy-in or people to look at your EAP. So we're not sure how to do that. Maybe it's just like updating the README of the EAPS document or the front page of like eaps.ethereum.org. They're both kind of similar right now, but not like a direct copy of each other. So that's still being decided. And there is an issue on the cat herders GitHub where we're having a conversation about that.
One thing I'd like to say about changes to EIP1, that requires a pull request and approval from the EIP editors, and that usually happens after community comment. So we will need to kind of advertise that we're trying to make changes to EIP1. The last time we did this, it was really difficult because there was a lot of conflicting opinions on it. But we want to make sure that we're not doing this and it seemed like we're trying to do this surreptitiously.
Oh, yeah.
Great point. Yeah.
I have created a pull request on this cat herder PM. I think I still do not have access to merge it, so I did not do that. But that is regarding the README update where I have mentioned like how we can go ahead and help in this hard fork planning and coordination thing. My question as well as suggestion, I mean, like first the question is, the role that we as a cat herder are going to play over there for this particular hard fork coordination, like for this Istanbul, what I'm taking here is like we need to collect the EIPs that needs to be considered. As per the discussion of Boris in the last CodeDev call, he is suggesting a way that we should be submitting the PRs for the EIP to be considered in this particular hard fork. And if we can do that in the GitHub where we submit all the EIPs saying that EIP to be considered for Istanbul Hartford, we can probably go ahead and pick up the EIP and then take it for the discussion, and then we follow the process, and if it is ready before the timeline, and then we can go ahead and say that this EIP is ready for the upgrade, and implementers can implement that. So I'm trying to write it up down there, and I have also created, I think I have not sent this yet. I've also created a list of PRs, a list of EIPs. Those are available on GitHub and Ethereum Magician and other forums for this Istanbul. And we can, like cat herders can manage that. I'm ready to do that if this is acceptable. Manage the list over there. We can keep on updating the list as we go. Like first, the proposals which are there, we select it, put it in a place saying that these are the proposed one. Take it to the meeting. To the codex. If they accept it, we can change it like under discussion. If it is ready, we can change it to accepted and done for the thing. So first thing I would request is that somebody should please look into the pull request that I have done and merge it. That would give a rough idea how we can do that. And second thing about this tracker, the EIP tracker, to be considered, I have created it and I will send it as soon as possible. So that's on from my side.
Cool.
So does this sound reasonable? Like we as a cat herders should go ahead and maintain this tracker so that people should get one place to look into like which EIPs are being considered. And if they want to submit the EIP for consideration, they can go ahead and submit in EIP at GitHub. Just mention that this EIP is for consideration for Istanbul. We'll pick up the EIP from there and take it further to the codex.
That sounds great to me. I think that's a really excellent improvement to the current processes.
That way we would not be disturbing EIP 1 as well, and we will be just going by the EIP 233 that is there to create this meta EIP for this Istanbul. We'll keep on updating the meta EIP for Istanbul only, and we would not be disturbing any of the current process.
Yeah, so I think that makes a lot of sense. And this is kind of what Boris's open pull request is about. I think the other thing you mentioned with the tracker, Pooja, what would be valuable in the tracker is also tracking it on a per client basis, right? So that the meta EIP will just track which EIPs are at which stage, and then the tracker will tell you which clients have actually implemented it once it's been agreed upon. So this way we know if we're ready for the hard fork.
That's correct. I'm planning to keep it in 2 trackers. One tracker that is containing only the EIP, so that we should know that EIP is actually going to be considered for the Istanbul hard fork. And once it is ready, then there is another EIP tracker, the client tracker that has been created by Boris, where it will mention like which client has already implemented that and what is the status of each and every client. So it is to be in 2 parts. One part there, which he kept it on the wiki, I guess, Ethereum wiki, and another the first tracker for the consideration. We will keep it at our cat herder GitHub.
Yeah. Pooja, will you be on the core dev call this Friday?
Yes, I will be.
Could you explain that on the call this Friday? That would help tremendously.
Of course, I will.
Great.
Yeah, and I think having specific links would be valuable. The only thing I'm concerned about is we don't want to duplicate, if we're tracking the EIPs in the meta EIP associated with the hard fork, we don't necessarily want to duplicate that somewhere else. We just want it to be clear for people how they can signal. So just having like specific links maybe, and like what the purpose of them would be, that would be really valuable.
Yes, of course. As I can see that meta hard fork is empty. There's nothing mentioned in that, and that's the reason why I have created this table. What we can do, probably with the help of Boris, if he grants access to us, we can create this list and we keep on updating it to the meta hard fork once this is approved or proposed as he suggests.
And if you need any help merging any of the PRs in the EIP repo when it comes to 233 or any other organizational meta EIPs, just private message me and I can get that done. Telegram's probably easiest, but I also check Gitter too.
Of course. Thank you.
Okay, anything else about the hard fork coordination? Okay, next item was process management. And I think this is based on a PR that I had open somewhere that I lost. Submitted, I forget his name, someone from Parity had submitted a PR. Okay, I got it right here. Luke from Parity had submitted this that documented the process management, project management process, sorry. It was quite a large PR, which was very formal. Look first, who John Stevens had given like some feedback on it. I had a quick look saying that it was quite long and it seemed like a bit of overkill for what we're doing at cat herders. And maybe if we could extract like whatever the most important parts were, it could help define them. I don't think Luke is on the call, and I don't know if anyone else had anything they wanted to add about this.
Yeah, just to simplify the process, I have created this PR. You guys can have a look. It's not the entire process, but this is going to give a brief idea of what task that we are doing and whom we should reach out to for that particular task. This may not be the most updated list. We can update that, but this would probably help community know what we are doing or how we should take it ahead. I would request everybody's feedback on it.
Oh, okay. Sorry. So I was completely confused. So I guess, yeah.
Two things, Tim. So you're spot on. So Pooja, just with regards to your link that you just posted now, does that reference any of the work done by Luke at all, or is this separate? I see it is separate.
This contains all the tasks like open tasks that we are doing right now,
Yep.
those tasks that we already have done, and under discussion tasks.
Yeah, perfect. Whereas Luke's process documents, I guess, was more like a business plan of sorts for a project, for an individual project, and he entitled it Ethereum 1.x, whereas some question, I think.
Yeah, somebody also suggested it
was
like
raised.
a document.
Yeah. Rather than 1.x, it should be for Ethereum. His is also, as you mentioned, Tim, quite rigid in its application. Whereas there's multiple tasks rather than one specific Ethereum 1.x task. It is worth people having a look at Luke's work if you haven't already, just to review it. I think it's probably a little bit too detailed for us, but might be worth taking some of that stuff out and fleshing that out a little bit better. Potentially around the ERP process going forward.
Cool, thanks, Brett. Anyone else has anything to add about either Pooja or Luke's work?
If everybody agrees, then somebody can approve it, or if some modification is required, please do suggest me.
Excellent. Thank you, Pooja.
Okay. Next agenda item was Malach. I'm not sure if it's Malach or Malach, DAO and Aragon review.
Probably Moloch.
Is Joseph on the call? I know Hugo couldn't make it. I suspect Joseph hasn't made it either, so no one's here to talk through that. So probably
okay. Yeah, so can we have an action item for next call to just bring that back up on the agenda, I guess? Does that make sense? Cool.
One super quick update on the Aragon DAO is that a very small portion of funds, I think 50 DAI, were transferred into the Aragon DAO. Joseph, I think, is the person who's actually no. Joseph was not. Was that Brett? Was that you who was doing this with me?
No, that was Chris.
Chris, sorry.
Holcroft.
Cool. And Chris is also not on the call. Okay. Just wanted to let people know that happened. It's all been documented. Everything in that DAO, this is on mainnet. This is real funds. Everything in that DAO is also fully transparent and auditable and accounted for and everything. And I don't think anything's been done with that funding yet, but just want to make people aware of that.
I forgot a quick ProgPow thing. People can donate to the multi-sig as an individual, like ETH and DAI and whatever other token, as well as doing it on Gitcoin. We recommend Gitcoin because there is $50,000 matching for certain grants, or up to that amount. So based on a CLR system, if I understand it correctly. So use the Gitcoin if you're going to donate, but if you for some reason can't because you don't want your name out there, you can donate directly to the multi-sig that's listed on there, and someone actually already gave an Ether. So, and they let me know that they gave an Ether for the ProgPow audit. So we can keep up with that.
Cool. Thanks, Lane and Hudson. Does anyone else have anything about either Monarch or Aragon, or we just move that to the next call? Okay.
Yep.
Update on the action items from the Constantinople postmortem.
Pedro, is there any update on this?
I don't think Charles, Hudson, or anybody got much time. Hudson, Charles?
Yeah, no, I haven't done much,
No.
Charles.
Yeah, I'm pretty occupied with the ProgPow audit stuff, but now that we've posted it out, that opens up some more time.
So
I
again,
agree.
do we just want to move this one to the next call?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So let's have an action item to move number 5 here to the next call. Next one is the Ethereum development portal / design. Sorry, the Ethereum development portal design / structure.
Yeah, so I originally was working on that, and I created some preliminary designs and ideas for structure and content, and I've shared it with a couple of people, but it kind of depends on what the status is of the new Ethereum.org site and what that will entail, if it will have more technical documentation for users to get started, or and if not, we can move forward with it. But we don't want to create something that's essentially the same thing, duplicated twice. Lane, do you have anything to add there?
Yeah, so I added an agenda item on the Ethereum.org update. Let's just jump right to that now if everyone's okay with that. So a couple things are happening. The first is that there is an initiative, as I know that I told you guys before, Spearhead. It's so hard to explain. It's quote unquote not officially an Ethereum Foundation initiative or not primarily an EF initiative, but it is being spearheaded by a very small number of people within the foundation to build a new Ethereum.org. The good news is I've seen the concept work that's been done. There's quite a bit of it. It's good. They're on the right track. The bad news is that they won't tell me sort of when they expect the first MVP of this to be done. The claim is that there's going to be some sort of, basically MVP, like a minimum viable site that is released sometime soon, for some definition of soon, and that it will be opened up to a wider audience at that point in time. But I don't know who's working on it now. I don't know when that will be. I don't know what they mean by wider audience, right? I don't know if that's everyone in the foundation. I don't know if it's public. So that's happening. Hudson, I don't know if you have anything to add on that, and then I'll just share another thread as well.
No, I don't have anything.
Okay. And yeah, I mean, I've been pushing for that process to be more open, but, there's only so much I can do, Hudson and I can do, and it seems like, in their defense, right, the people working on this feel that they can get to that first prototype in a faster, more efficient process if they can just focus and execute, and I'm perfectly okay with that. With the caveat that I'd like some accountability. I'd just like to know kind of when it's going to happen, and to know that it will be sort of opened up to the community, at some specific point in time. In parallel, just in the past 24 hours or so, there's been yet again another call in the community for a new Ethereum.org, right? This tends to happen every few months, and it seems like today is the next one. And so some folks, including Luis, one of the founders of Aragon, basically has said that he's willing to commit time and resources to this, and some other people have stepped up as well. I went ahead previously and created a GitHub organization for this, which is github.com/ethereum-dot-org. And while I'm a little bit sort of concerned about duplicated effort, in general, I think multiple initiatives are good. And I think that they might both the one I described a moment ago, as well as a community initiative, might both arrive at valuable content, and that we may find some way in the future to kind of reconcile these or have them be two sections of a site or something. And in general, I just think that branding and messaging and all this stuff is just should be one of our very, very, very top priorities. And so I think the more hands on deck, the better. So intend to support that initiative, and I think that could use some help from the cat herders as well.
Could you drop a link in the Zoom chat there, please, Lang?
Yes, but there's literally nothing there yet. It's just an empty GitHub org with one repository and maybe one or two tasks. So please feel free to add things.
Real quick, Lane. I was talking to Joseph from the Ethereum Foundation about this, about having a separate repo for the Ethereum.org website. And the concern I have from a DevOps perspective is that there are special settings that me and Jamie have to set up when we are doing a redirect from the Ethereum controlled Ethereum.org repo and the Ethereum GitHub organization. So if it's in a different organization, I feel that might be affected. I can't really say exactly how, except that we do need special permissions to set up certain things. And so we don't know if we want certain DNS settings connecting to a repo that's outside of the Ethereum.org or the Ethereum organization and GitHub, since the foundation will continue to control the Ethereum.org name.
Yeah, thanks for pointing that out, Hudson. That's perfectly valid. I don't think anyone at this particular moment is contemplating transferring ownership of like the Ethereum.org, kind of DNS and the what's it called, the DevOps side of that. Thank you, of course, for your ongoing work on that. Good question. The flip side, just to play devil's advocate here, is that if it's a community initiative and not an EF initiative, then you could make the case that the community should have ownership of it and it shouldn't live inside the Ethereum org. I guess maybe let's not take too much time on this call. Like, the good thing about Git is that Git itself is decentralized, right? So worst case, we can always have a snapshot of it or a fork of it or something inside the Ethereum org if necessary. Does that make sense?
Yeah, something connecting the two I think would be ideal. So we'll look into more ways to get something like that done.
Cool.
And see who can manage it. Yeah, we'll talk about that more later.
Cool. Thank you. I think my one last kind of question here is, does anyone feel that having these two initiatives happen in parallel is a bad idea? If so, I'd love to hear people's thoughts on that.
I go back and forth, but I haven't thought about it enough to have a solid idea, so I don't really have comment.
It's probably going to be necessary if one of them is a bit more secret. I mean, that way there is something actually visible that people can contribute to.
Yeah, my take on this is, instead of trying to fight the secrecy, like, let's just do the right thing in open and in public, and people can kind of choose to support what they want to support. And again, I just want to be very explicit, like, there's no coup, no one's planning to take over Ethereum.org. Like, we all want to work together as a community and kind of come up with the best possible content that we can. And I'm confident we can find a way, for whatever content is produced that's quality, right, to find a home on a new site. Yeah.
Something you might... Yeah, go ahead.
Nope, I lost my train of thought. Go ahead.
Something you might want to watch out for, though, is if there's already sort of this quiet EF site renovation going on, and the more visible one is that if the more visible, the Luis Cuende effort or something like that ends up not really being implemented in favor of whatever was implemented by the EF group, that might cause a little bit of what's the word I'm looking for? Outcry. Did that make any sense? I don't know if I said that clearly.
Yeah, I don't understand. What do you mean by not implemented in favor of?
If there's a certain amount of
Oh, I see.
duplicated work, or if there's something that's divergent between the two different visions, what Ethereum.org should look like, and the effort that had less transparency is the one that ends up getting implemented, especially because that is the EF's own effort. I could see that causing a certain amount of outcry about, you know, centralization, secret dictatorship, like sort of thing. Valid or not is a different question, but I could just like see that trope coming from here.
I can only see a few people at the foundation that would actually fight that, and no one would fight it publicly, so I don't see that as a problem.
Oh, great.
As far as like, I guess that could still, I should say, put it this way, that can still happen, but there is only a handful of people on the side of the EF secret project at the EF right now, even. So, as my perception. So, when I say on the side of, like, everyone supports the fact that it's getting done, but people are frustrated with how slow it's going, or how the lack of transparency around it, to the point where I don't think the Ethereum Foundation would take a public stance on it that would be aggressive. They wouldn't have the support.
I see what you're saying.
Cool. Yeah, I agree with that. I think we should approach this like without promises. I don't think there's any promise that another initiative is also, you know, whatever comes out of it is definitely going to live on Ethereum.org. But I would say that if what comes out of it is good, and if the community feels that way, that it's highly likely to happen.
Sounds good.
Is there any action item we want to track on the cat herder side for this, or do we just want to sort of follow up whenever there's more?
I think there will be. I think so. Luis is preparing a proposal which I'm going to contribute to. So let's wait till that's done, and yeah, I think we should probably add it for the next call to just circle back on it. I do think there's quite a bit that the cat herders can do to help with this initiative.
Okay. So yeah, I guess just adding it as a discussion point for next call, and yeah, updating based on whatever has happened since.
Sounds good.
Cool. Community outreach. I'm not sure who added that and what was meant here.
Just I guess a follow on from what we've been doing with regards to just making ourselves more aware in the community. No major updates per se. The weekly update continues to be sent out via Puja, but otherwise no other further update.
Okay. Anyone else have anything they want to add to this? Okay. Replacing AFRI as a multi-sig key holder.
That one's mine. This was discussed a bit on Gitter, but yeah, I thought we should sort of reach a conclusion about it now and have this, you know, kind of transcribed on the call. Originally, we set up a GitHub org with Hudson, myself, and Afri as owners, and we set up the multi-sig, which you're all familiar with the three of us as key holders, and it's a one of N situation right now. There's a few schools of thought here. My thought is it should be as simple as possible, and if it were up to me, I would say let's just replace Afri and have some other person be a third key holder, and that person, I don't have any strong preference, but it should be someone that, you know, is kind of nominated from the group. In general, I support adding kind of more people and expanding it, and maybe moving, instead of a one of N, we could have like a, you know, 3 of 5 or a 4 of 7 or something in the future. But I also think that that's not super critical right now. And I do think that there should be some minimum length of time that someone has kind of contributed to the herders community before we would give them a key. So those are my thoughts.
Yeah, I have no issue with that at all.
Yeah, that sounds like a good idea.
Agreed.
So should the first step be taking Afri off of it, and then we deciding who should be on it? Or
well, there was some consensus, if I remember correctly, a week or two ago when this was brought up on Gitter. There were some nominations that were put forth. So if we can decide now, let's decide now, and if we can't decide now, then that's fine. We should figure out how to decide.
I mean, I have
so,
it
so in the Gator channel, we okay.
Yeah, I was gonna say like Charles or Brett or Pooja.
Oh.
Either any one of
Yeah.
those three, I think, have been I've seen have contributed, and I guess the reason that I would say them specifically is because they've also done some stuff with the Gitcoin bounties as far as the note taking has gone. If I'm recalling correctly, I might be not thinking of the right people, but I thought Charles, Brett, and Pooja have been working on the Gitcoin bounties for note taking.
So
yeah.
So when we had a discussion in the Gator channel, the three names, we decided that Charles is probably the best person to take that.
Right.
Yeah,
Is
also because he's also one of the like oldest members after you and Lane.
cool. Is anyone opposed to replacing Afri with Charles as a key holder?
I'm cool with it.
I'm good.
Me too.
That may be the fastest I've ever seen an Ethereum group reach consensus.
Yeah.
Cool. Charles,
So
Charles, can you send me an Ethereum address privately, and I'll make the change.
Okay, sounds great. Thanks, guys.
Cool. And yeah, let's just add an action item to check on the next call that it's been done, and if there's any updates there as well.
Yep. Oh, real quick. I saw that Ofri is still part of Parity, but is now with ETC Core Labs. So if we can get a hold of him, we should congratulate him. I don't know how to get a hold of him right now.
Yep. Sounds good.
Okay. Next agenda item is ETH2 coordination help.
Yeah, this is Mikaela's item. She requested that this be added to the agenda, so I'll just she has kindly joined us on the call, so I'll just turn it over to her.
Hello, I'm Kira. I'm currently an ETH2.0 implementer. I work on Lodestar, a JavaScript and TypeScript implementation of the Beacon chain. And if you've been following like ETH2.9, you must have heard that there'd be a testnet by the end of Q1, which is like the end of this week, and there's nothing. And it appears to me that there isn't like somebody like a release manager or anything for ETH 2.0. I know that Danny kind of coordinates the calls and answers questions, but there isn't like a plan or a process in place to actually get a multi-client testnet done or anything like that. And everybody wants a testnet before we actually deploy it. So some teams are currently working on local testnets, and we're doing that as well. But in order to get to a multi-client testnet, we need to coordinate more between the teams. And I'd like to enlist the help of the cat herders for that. I guess that's it.
Wasn't Artemis doing some coordination on that, or is that incorrect?
So we're working with Artemis to work on a Lodestar Artemis testnet, but we need coordination between the other teams as well. So like one of the major bottlenecks that we've been encountering is networking. So some teams have a native libp2p implementation, but other teams don't. Artemis is one of those teams. So the plan was to have an interim wire protocol for teams that don't have a libp2p implementation. And then using that, we could have sort of smaller scale testnets between clients. But on a higher level, not all teams have decided this. This was just between us and the Artemis team.
Understood. And has this been brought up on the ETH2 core, the ETH2 implementation calls with Danny?
Not yet. I plan on bringing it up this week. We have a call on Thursday at the same time, 2 p.m. UTC. So yeah, I plan on bringing this up on Thursday as well.
Because my suggestion would be that, I mean, unless someone here knows of anyone in the cat herders who has ETH 2.0 experience, I guess, in order to coordinate this correctly and knows the people from the other teams, I think it would be more of an uphill battle for the cat herders to do it compared to someone else in the ETH 2.0 ecosystem from one of those calls. That's my first thought on it. It's not that we couldn't do it, but I think it would be slower if we did it compared to someone who's more accustomed to the ecosystem at
ETH2. Yeah, thanks for sharing your thoughts, Hudson. And Mikara, thank you, of course, for reaching out about this. I kind of disagree with you, Hudson. I mean, I agree that it would be slow in the beginning, but the point that I disagree about is that, like, to me, this is exactly what the cat herders is for and is supposed to help with. And so I'm suggesting that, I mean, obviously it's not up to you or I, right? It's up to the other people in the group. But if anyone in this group is interested in helping out with ETH2 PM work, I think they should. And I think that, yes, there will definitely be a learning curve and it will take some time to get up to speed. But I do see value in that, given that we have a group of professional project managers here.
And Joseph just jumped on the call. I don't know if it's related.
Yeah, kind of. Somebody was like, "Oh, the cat herders calls right now." I was like, "Oh, I forgot because I'm in Turkey." No, so sorry.
Yeah, I guess the reason I called you out, Joseph, sorry about that, but it's just we were talking about coordination for ETH 2.0, and Mikra was saying that there's some work done being between her team and Artemis already. So how do we just like coordinate more broadly amongst like the 2.0 team to make sure we do get like a multi-client testnet, and whether or not the cat herders are like the right group to do that?
Yeah, I can't say. I think coordination is going pretty good now. We had some like rough patches in the beginning. Kind of like everybody getting used to everybody. And this might be slightly off topic. We're planning on an interoperability workshop sometime in July. We're like co-planning that with ChainSafe. But that won't bring us everything for interoperability. That will, be one kind of like milestone, I think. But yeah, I think so far we're doing pretty good. The kind of the note taking stuff that cat herders do would be, I think, like really great. And then also I would say like there's like a lot of like communication channel fragmentation right now, probably by like our own designs. But yeah, that's my take on it.
We already have somebody that takes notes for ETH 2.0 though. His name is Peter.
Oh, okay, cool. Then I don't know.
So, Mikira, what exactly are the main goals of having someone from the cat herders help with the coordination and, like you said, facilitation of the testnet? If you could like lay it out in a couple sentences.
So I don't have much PM experience, but what comes off the top is more like setting deadlines for things and perhaps trying to gather bottlenecks and what can be done in order to resolve those bottlenecks, and making sure that all the teams are like implementing the spec on time. So there's various releases, and different teams are targeting different releases. But in order to have a multi-client testnet, we'd have to target any 0.50 or above, because those releases have consensus tests. So I guess it's kind of vague, really. But one thing that I noticed from the ETH1 client teams is that there's a chart somewhere that shows what teams have implemented what EIPs. And that's what comes to mind for coordination.
Yeah, something like that wouldn't hurt. The more I think about this, the more I'm starting to change my mind and agree with Lane that we could come up with certain things, even if they're small things at first, that would help with coordination, like the chart you're talking about, for instance. And that would also give whoever's running that a chance to get to know the ETH 2.0 teams a little bit more.
Would it make sense for any of the cat herders to join the regular ETH2 implementers call? Of course, you know, Dean and Joseph, you guys are, you know, already implementers yourselves, but any of the others, I mean, yeah.
Yeah, I have not even, I mean, like actually been into it 2.0, but I would definitely like to look into it. I'm not sure how much helpful I could be, but as far as I can understand, Mikera's uh, mm, thing from what she may be looking from us as a PM perspective, it's more of a tracking and coordination thing, like if it is being implemented in the client properly and what is ready or not. So I would like to get in touch with her. Maybe offline I can get in touch with Makera and try to follow the H 2.0. And if at all I would be helpful, I will definitely offer my help over there.
Yeah, Mike, you're out. I'll also be willing to help as well. I know the Chainsafe people pretty well, so I could join in whenever you feel the need.
Yeah, I guess we can like take this offline after the call. But yeah, I'd be interested in helping out and having more concrete ideas.
I missed this. Are you a cat herder now?
No, I just would like to enlist their help, so I posted in the issue, and I'm in the call to provide more context.
Cool. That's great.
Can I just have a show of hands who'd be interested in assisting Makera with Ethereum 2.0?
I'd show my hand if I could.
I'm interested. Things are going to be a bit crazy for me.
So you can use the raise hand feature in Zoom.
No, wait, where?
Okay, I've got Charles, Pujo, William.
Competent.
Sorry, who was that?
Dean.
Dean. Excellent, thanks, Dean. Okay, thanks, guys. I'll put the list of people in the notes after the meeting, and a separate call can be set up to discuss what can be done. Obviously, the first things first, probably get everyone's consensus over at Ethereum 2 before we move forward.
Cool. And maybe we should just leave this on the agenda for next time for like this group to report back about what's happening. And I think, like Mikra, you said you're bringing it up in 2 days at the E2 call as well, right? So I think getting a feel from what all those people want or don't want will be valuable as well.
Yeah, definitely. I'll just post in the issue for the ETH 2.0 call. And then when do these calls happen? Are they bi-weekly?
Bi-weekly.
Yeah. So I'll be back for the next call, and I'll have an update.
Well, thank you.
Cool. We're sort of on time, but we have a couple of things left to go over. Do we want to keep going, or do we want to just drop it here and pick up at the next call?
I had just a couple of updates regarding the ECH website. I think that needs to be updated. So I'm not sure who is taking care of that website, but probably they can look into a couple of stuffs, like we can update the upcoming hard fork with the new one, and we can add the YouTube link, Reddit, and get a link, and something we can make our ECH website updated. So,
so Hugo's in charge of that.
Charles.
Puja, do you want to reach out to Hugo?
Yeah, if Charles is taking care of that, I'm fine.
Oh, okay.
I'm happy to keep going, and Hudson, you're the one recording, so if you are as well, we can maybe just get over these last action items, and we'll share the recording with whoever has to drop off.
Yeah, that sounds good to me.
Okay, cool. Next one was communicating about all core devs. That one was for me. So the reason I posted it is I think this past week there was a bunch of outcry about ProgPal specifically on Twitter, Reddit, and everything. And it felt like the consensus from people who attended core devs was different than like the rest of the community. And part of that seemed to be because the core devs, the like outcomes of the core devs maybe aren't communicated as clearly as they could be. So I know we already have transcripts and the live stream, but it's quite like a lot of work for people to parse an entire 2-hour call or read the associated transcript. One thing I tried to do personally during the last core dev was just kind of live tweet it. That was like a 50-ish tweet thread, which is probably still a lot, but a bit quicker to parse. So I'm wondering if people have ideas around like, how could we just more succinctly share the updates from all core devs and on which platforms? I had a few, but I'm curious to hear if anyone else has like strong opinions there as well.
I actually really like the live tweet idea.
Yeah, we spoke about this, Charles, myself, and we said that whilst it's great that the notes are there, even in the notes things can get lost. And so having a summary of sorts that we could push out, I'm not sure whether it's at the top of the notes or elsewhere, would be pretty useful just with regards to decisions made, action items outstanding, that kind of thing. Just the real summary of it. And if we could do that in a consistent manner, whether it's via our Medium posts or something like that, I think people would probably appreciate it and start looking at that.
Hey everyone, so I'm pretty late to the party a little bit. On what Brett said, I think that's the correct way, and I want to suggest actually just crunching up the notes or the tweets and making a shorter summary with the most relevant things, because people won't read more than, let's say, 400 words tops. On the Magicians forum every time that there's a core dev call, because we already are using that forum. So I think it makes no sense to reinvent the wheel.
I think that's a great idea. I like the idea of capping it at 400 words or around that, right? Like less than 5 minutes to read. One thing I also noticed is that the @Ethereum account tends to tweet the live stream for the core devs call, but it would maybe be good if, like, I don't know if they could just retweet that summary, because as much as like we like the Magicians and the cat herders, the like following of the @Ethereum account is like 2 orders of magnitudes bigger. So I feel like Hudson or Lane, you would probably notice more, but I'm not sure if it'd be possible to just share those summaries with the broader community as well.
I like the idea of having a dedicated core devs Twitter account that shares that. And then beyond that, people like Evan Van Ness can do it in his week in Ethereum, and we can do like a Reddit post, basically hitting up Twitter, Reddit, and Evan. And those are the main ones I can think of right now.
Okay. I saw someone registered the @ETHCoreDevs handle. I don't know if that person is on this call. It seems to be like kind of a placeholder now, but I'll take this as a no.
On the Reddit,
yeah, not aware of that.
So I would like for easy access as well, I would actually continue to press on like publishing them all in Magicians, because you can actually make some sort of a collection, and obviously cross-posting on Reddit. I think that Reddit alone won't do, especially because we have some people in the community that are very interested and just don't visit Reddit anymore because of the so-called toxicity or whatever you want to call it. But to make these kind of summaries, also just to generate a pool of 2 to 3 volunteers, 400 words capped, and then push it onto Magicians and push it, label it, because in Magicians then you can search for core devs and you will find all the summaries of the calls, and then obviously post it on Reddit for the wider community could actually work better.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. So having ETH Magicians as like the central repo of these things, having 2 or 3 people dedicated to it, making sure there's a Reddit post, people will probably organically share it on Twitter as well. The only thing I'd maybe add is it could be good to add it to the agenda for that core devs call. So when people go back on GitHub after, they'll see sort of the summary, or just post it in the comments there. I don't know for an action item there, do we have specific people who want to volunteer for these summaries? Do we just want to take it offline to decide how we coordinate on that?
I think whoever's doing the notes for the meeting could probably summarize the meeting afterwards and post it to the Ethereum Magicians.
I can summarize once every 3 weeks. That's why I said like the pool of 3 volunteers, because we can take turns. And I think that's pretty dynamic and gives you a lot of legroom for other things. But like once every 3 is good for me.
I can volunteer as well to summarize too. So I can support you, MP, on that one.
I'd be happy to as well. I just can't do it every week. So I love this idea of like multiple, like once every couple weeks. And I think Pooja, you're taking the notes for all core devs, right?
No, this time Brett is taking. I mean, like we are taking turns.
Okay, so the 2 of you are taking turns for the full notes, right?
Yes.
Correct.
Yep. And does it make sense to have someone else summarize them, or would you rather just do that yourselves, or? Yeah.
No, I think we take notes and publish it in like 24 hours or something like that. So if somebody would like to summarize, that's fine with us. I mean, fine with me, of course.
Yep.
Cool. And where do you currently coordinate to do that?
I think an internal channel somewhere, like we discussed that if somebody would want to take the notes, only Brett and me were there. So we are just coordinating, and nobody else volunteered for that then.
Okay, so maybe it makes sense to just set up a channel between like the 5 of us, so Brett, Pooja, Helena, MP, and me, for both the notes and the summaries. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
Sounds good.
of course.
Cool. Yeah.
Brett,
Okay.
can you do that? I mean, like, can you pull all of us together for this time?
Yep, I'll do that.
Thank you.
Cool. Anything else about communicating the all core devs? Okay. So there was another point around any other business. So is there anything else someone wants to bring up that can't wait till the next meeting? Okay.
Just one last question, Tim. Like,
yes.
are we gonna have them call tomorrow for that, and who is gonna set up that call for coordination?
For coordination on what?
Hard fork coordination. I believe it is due tomorrow, Wednesday.
Okay. I'm not aware of that.
Brett?
Yeah. That we'd requested to have a meeting for the hard fork coordination, but at the time the people didn't feel it was appropriate, so I don't think there is a meeting, Pooja.
Oh, there is no meeting? Okay, that's fine. All right, thank you.
Sure. Okay, anything else? And if not, I can just go over the action items we had from last time quickly. So 6.3 was ProgPal subcommittee to review feedback from stakeholders. I think we talked about that at the beginning of this call. So
yeah, that's been done.
Yeah, good. 6.4, Joseph to post the updated communications checklist to the Ethereum Cat Herders internal Gitter channel.
Still waiting on Joseph.
Okay, so that one will have to be brought over. 6.7, Hugo and Joseph to work together to write up a general overview of how Monarch might benefit, the Ethereum community.
Yeah, next call.
Not done.
Okay.
Not done.
No worries. 7.1, identify the new Gitcoin grant. So that's done. And I guess there is no more Gitcoin grant because Whiteblock is not benchmarking anymore. So that's done. 7.2, I did add the comment to all core devs. So that's done. 7.3, Hudson to provide feedback on hard fork coordinators.
Yeah, that one we talked about earlier in the call, and it's not done.
Okay. 7.4, Puja to manage cat herders to review Puja's internal master document. So we talked about this already. Is there anything else we want to do here, Puja?
Just I would want somebody to approve the PR so that it can be actually merged into the cat headers process document.
I'll do that later, Puja.
And last action item, cat herders to look at the handbooks. So we talked about that already. That's done. And then the last thing on the agenda is the next meeting. So do we just want to have another meeting same time 2 weeks from now?
Just a heads up, 2 weeks from now is during EdCon. Some of us will be in Sydney, Australia for that. So timing wise, it's a little tough with time zones and stuff, but that doesn't mean the call shouldn't happen. Just pointing that out. And we have people who join this call regularly from that time zone. So
No, mate, I'm 3 hours behind, mate.
So wait, so Brett, what time does anyone off the top of their head know what time it would be in Australia during the call?
1 o'clock in the morning. It's too early, too late. So probably change it to the 16th.
So to this, okay. So we'd change it to the 16th, so that's 3 weeks from now
April.
instead of having it 1 week from now, right?
just to be clear, please don't change plans just for me. Are other people affected by that?
I will be affected by it.
Yeah, I think we should change it to either 1 week from now or 3 weeks from now or both.
Because there's a lot going on, I would be biased towards 1 week, but I'm happy to be convinced the other way as well.
I like the idea of 1 week from now personally.
Me too. It looks like
5th of April.
Okay,
Yeah.
so let's do 1 week from now. So that'll be the 2nd of April or 1 a.m. on the 3rd of April for Australia. Yeah, we can just create a new GitHub agenda item for that. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Sounds good.
Cool. Anything else anyone wants to chat about?
That's
Okay.
Good job, Tim.
Thanks.
Thanks, Tim.
Yeah. Thanks, everybody.
Yeah, good job.
Thanks, Tim.
Bye.